Good. All right. Just reviewing Kansas State. Obviously, suffered a hard-fought loss against a quality Power 5 and Big 12 opponent. It was a tough and physical football game, closely contested for 4 quarters. And we knew in a game like this that the margin of error was going to be small. I think Donald Rumsfeld said that. Lack of precision is dangerous when the margin of error is small. And the kids played hard, but as we reviewed the film, we pointed out, and I think I might have mentioned this after the game, that there were 1 or 2 plays in each phase that we didn't make the plays and they did make the plays that kind of dictated the outcome of the game. And really lost momentum with that kickoff return. Made the field goal to go up 24-17, and right away, flip it around and they returned to make it 24-24. And I think there's about a little over 12 minutes left in the game there, and kind of had a little bit of back and forth, and never really able to regain it. It was disappointing in that regard that we weren't able to finish it off. And certainly it is a cliche, but you win as a team and you lose as a team. And players and coaches, that if we're all going to bask in the praise of a victory, that we're all going to share in the blame of the loss. And first and foremost, we want our guys to be thumb guys and not finger guys, and looking in the mirror, not out the window. And the first thumb always goes back to me to make sure that I'm doing everything necessary to put the kids in position to be successful. And we indicated that in the team meeting and talked about that. We watched the film. We made the corrections yesterday, and we moved on to Kentucky. We're in the process of game planning that game now. Looking at it from an overall perspective of 3 games, I think there's a lot of positives going on right now. Obviously on offense, Colin Hill leads the SEC in rushing. I think explosive plays as well, and is second in the country for Power 5 backs for yards. Osiris Mitchell playing at a very high level right now. I think he's 9th in the conference in receiving. Over 200 yards, 3 receiving touchdowns already. Like the progress of our pass game for the first 2 games. Obviously took a step back a little bit in this past one. Defensively, believe that Errol Thompson and Brian Cole are playing really, really well. And Jace Christman made a career-long field goal this past week. So, and also playing a ton of freshmen and first-year players for a myriad of reasons. But I think the guys that have been asked to do that have stepped up very well. From a student athlete of the week standpoint, it is DeMonte Russell and Dylan Lawrence. From an injury standpoint, try to get out ahead of that a little bit for you guys to help you out instead of being peppered with questions that I really don't have the answers to. Nick Gibson continues to be day-to-day with a lower body. Darian Parker continues to be day-to-day with a lower body as well. And then Tommy Stevens, obviously, with the upper body is day-to-day. And those guys all participated in practice on Sunday in some form or fashion. And then Cam Dantzler with a lower body is still day-to-day. Okay. All right, moving on to Kentucky. Obviously, the SEC home opener. Encourage our fans to come out. Going to need a big crowd this weekend. Bulldog Bash on Friday night and a 3 p.m. kickoff at Davis Wade Stadium. Certainly excited to kick off the season in conference play. Looking ahead to Kentucky, obviously Mark Stoops is a head coach. Overall record of 38-40 at Kentucky. Began coaching in 2013. Was a coach of the year last year. Led Kentucky to its 3rd 10-win season in school history, and had their first New Year's Day bowl appearance and New Year's Day bowl win in 20 years. And he was the defensive coordinator at Florida State from 2010 to 2012, and transformed their defense from 108th in the country to 2nd nationally, and have a ton of respect for Coach Stoops, being a Youngstown guy, Midwestern guy, and obviously comes from a great coaching family, but I think he's a great person and think the world of him as a coach as well. Eddie Grand's our offensive coordinator, kind of a well-reputed spread guy, does a real nice job. They mix in 11 and 12 personnel, a little bit of unbalanced, and have shown some wildcat with Lynn Bowden. Averaging 32 a game, 430 yards, 185 rushing, 245 passing. The quarterback's a pretty interesting kid. Had a chance to sit back and watch the Florida game. Sawyer Smith, transfer from Troy. A little bit different than the Terry Wilson kid. I think he's a little bit more of a passer than a runner, but is a guy who can beat you with his feet. And I thought he made some good decisions and some good throws throughout that game. So he was a kid, that was pretty impressive. Very, very confident. Kind of have 2 running backs that they play. A.J. Rose, good vision, long strider, more of a linear kind of one-cut guy, and, more of an eye back. And then Cavassier Smoke, you saw him in the Florida game, really explosive, quick, a little bit better change of direction. But those two guys really, I think, complement each other very well, and quite frankly, run behind a very big, physical, and aggressive offensive line. You look at their guys across the board, the average anywhere between 6'5" and 6'7". I think all of them are well above 300, getting up into the 322 range. So I've been very impressed with the size and the physicality and the athletic ability of their offensive line. And obviously we mentioned Lynn Bowden at the wide receiver. And I recruited Lynn out of high school. I was at Penn State from Warren G. Harding. And he's just a multifaceted guy. Get him the ball in the pass game, get him the ball on speed sweeps, plays a little bit of wildcat quarterback. It's obviously in the return game as well, so he's very dangerous in space. The defensive coordinator is Brad White. Base 3 down, 1 and 2 high zone, giving up 23 a game, averaging 390 yards, 122 in the rush, and 267 in the pass. Up front, Josh Pascal, 10 tackles, 3 for loss, and 1 sack this year. Long, physical, rangy, kind of in the mold of 41. I think he was a first-round pick. Help me with the name. Josh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, kind of in that mold, plays that same position. Cash Daniel, the linebacker, number 56, 10 tackles last week versus Florida, team captain, emotional leader, and you look at him, and he is all over the field. He is 100% motor, 100% of the time, and a guy I really respect his game, and he affects the run game. He covers in the pass game. He runs sideline to sideline. He gets downhill. So I've been really impressed with him for 2 years, and he's obviously the kind of the emotional leader of the defense and the guy that gets them going. So he's really impressive. And on the back end, Cedric Dort, the defensive back, smooth, athletic corner, playing with a lot of confidence. I believe he's the one guy on the back end that returns. That's not a new guy. So he's been playing really well as of late. Dean Hood's the special teams coordinator, multiple formations on punt to create mismatches. Pretty simple kickoff and kickoff return scheme and sound on punt return. The punter's averaging 51 a punt, 50.6 net, which leads the country. 85% touchbacks on kickoffs. And then kickoff return, they're averaging 23. We talked about the punter, Max Duffy. And then Lynn is the punt returner and the kickoff returner as well. I believe he had a couple for touchdowns last year in the return game, and continues to do that this year. He's a very electric player. One of the top playmakers in the SEC. And the keys to victory will always be the same. How we approach it during the week from a mental standpoint and a physical standpoint, and how well we play and how well we execute on game day. So talking to kids after practice yesterday, you want there to be a certain level of disappointment for the loss, but at the same time, you can't let one game beat you twice. So we allowed them to be upset about it. We allowed them to, kind of, make the corrections and do the things we needed to do. But when that got done at practice, we moved on to Kentucky. I think there was a good energy, a good bounce in our step, and a good understanding that, our singleness of purpose of taking it 1 week at a time. That, we've gone 1-0 twice, and we've gone 0-1 once. So we got to put this game to bed. Understand the things we did well, continue to do them. Understand the things we did poorly, and work to correct them, and get on to our first SEC game against a great opponent. So, any questions?
The mic team.
Two questions. The first, Joe, just at this point in Game 4, obviously with injury suspensions, has there been any talks of redshirting guys at this point in the season? Obviously, a lot of young guys have got some.
Yeah, we review that on every Monday. So guys who are either true freshmen or have a redshirt year available, we kind of put them into 3 categories: green, yellow, or red. Guys we know are certainly going to utilize the year of eligibility and play them. Guys who are not quite sure and possibly could go with 4, but based on, as you mentioned, injuries and other circumstances, you may have to activate them. And guys that are for sure red shirts. So it does change, on a weekly basis, kind of based on what the need is per position. That's something that we got to address, every week.
And just going off of that, any true freshmen at this point that have been decided that they will be redshirted?
Will be redshirted, yeah. I don't have the list in front of me, but there are more than a handful that are gonna be redshirt guys this year. As of now, and like I said, it could change, but as of now, they are.
Coach, after reviewing the film, it appeared there'd be some special teams pressure on the punt coverage there,
yeah.
Punt protections there. Was there any consistency with any of that, and is that correctable?
It happened twice, and it's correctable. You know, it was the left tackle on that side of the line, you know, stepping down. It wasn't really too much of an all-out rush as it was just a fundamental and technique thing of stepping down and staying square and not opening the gate and letting that guy get up inside of there. So from a protection standpoint, we worked on a bunch of that in individual time yesterday during practice. So that's something that's, you know, is very correctable.
There were a couple times, too, where the tight end showed block and then kind of leaked out into the pass pattern. What did you kind of see on those busts?
Yeah, one time they overthrew the guy, and we were in man coverage on that thing. And it goes back to, you know, we talked about heading into the week, and I think a little bit later, that for as well as they run the ball, they're going to try to put you in conflict at the second and third level and create eye violations where you're playing your run gap, but you're also responsible for pass. And what happened on the one you're talking about is the tight end fanned out and blocked the corner, which activates the guy who's in coverage on him into the run fit, and then they leaked him out late. So it was a very good play design. So you know, that eye discipline on the back end and making sure your eyes are staying on your keys. You know, that's what led to that tight end being open on that play.
Obviously, it's early in the week, Coach, but where is Tommy, like, with his comfort level with the shoulder, and how do you kind of prepare that for the rest of the week as far as his practice availability?
It was way better yesterday and today and heading in tomorrow than it was at this point last week.
What did you see, in simple terms, how was that shoulder affecting his thermal motion?
Not much in the first half. I mean, 7 of 13 was moving the ball around pretty good and had a couple drops, and you know, it just got a little bit weak on him at halftime, and he wanted to try it out, and we wanted to see how it went, and then it just got to a point where we felt that you know, it was, you know, we don't want to leave him in the game when he wasn't able to you know, perform at 100%, so we had to move on.
You mentioned last week if he couldn't go, you were preparing 4 guys. What's the schedule like? Are you still preparing Schrader and KT and Maiden?
And we want to get all those guys ready to play in the game if you know, the situation dictates. But you know, certainly as I mentioned after the game, the KT is still, you know, rehabbing from a lingering, you know, upper body injury that occurred during the course of camp, and you know, we want to be fair to him and make sure he's fully healthy before we continue to kind of work him into the rotation. But certainly between Tommy, Garrett, you know, we got Jalen some reps last week, but as KT continues to heal up, and you know, he's performing better in practice, you know, we want to feel more confident about him as well.
In what ways, if any, have you seen Kentucky's offense change since they've had to make the change at quarterback?
Not as many design quarterback runs as they did with Wilson, and that's just, you know, one game.
Past 2 games, you've had to play 2 quarterbacks, obviously. How important would it be to have one, whether it is Stevens or...
It'd be great. It'd be awesome.
Like, how vital is that? How valuable is it to have one guy play throughout the duration of the game?
Yeah, you know, I think just from a consistency standpoint, and when you look at, and I'll say took a minor step back. I mean, we had a bunch of different guys catch passes, but we fell off from a completion percentage standpoint. That continuity in the pass game, when you talk about the 3 elements, you know, protection, you know, route, read, throw, and catch. And I think that's where, you know, as we talked about it, you know, there were times where the protection broke down a little bit. I mean, we only gave up 2 sacks, but there was a little bit of leakage on some of the third down stuff. We had people open and maybe missed a read or 2, or had people open and threw it accurately and had a couple critical drops, you know, or you know, we misread it or had an overthrow. And I think that lack, as you mentioned, that lack of consistency with who's throwing the ball and who's making the reads, particularly when the second guy in there is a true freshman. You know, you'd love to keep, you know, one guy in there the entire time just to build off all the positive things we did in the first 2 games.
Coach, just last week, obviously, with Cam banged up for the Kansas State game, obviously Jerrion and Martin have played a number of snaps the last couple of weeks, but how comfortable are you with those guys in the secondary and just holding things down when a guy like Cam does go down?
You talking about the freshman?
Yeah.
Yeah. First, I think Tyler Williams has done a really, really nice job, and Mo Smitherman, you know, outside of 1 or 2 plays, I think he played physical. He played fast. You know, did his job really well. But you know, Jarion and Martin Emerson. You look at a couple other guys, as I mentioned, across the board as either true freshmen or first-year starters. Javante, LaQuinston Sharp getting in there, you know, kind of doing some nice things. But you know, Coach Shoup and Coach Buckley even remarked when we were watching the film the other day that the young guys aren't making very many first-year mistakes. You know, I mean, that they're maturing at a very fast rate, and I think a lot of that goes back to their ability, but also their desire to perform well at a high level and their preparation that goes into it. So, you know, those are 2 guys that we've been very pleased with thus far.
kind of on the quarterback front, and I guess with redshirting too, just with Keaton banged up, not that you guys are rushing him back, but like how important is it to get him back just with Garrett having played 2 games already and maybe wanting him to use that redshirt year?
Yeah, I want to say the redshirt is the last thing on our mind because that's not accurate, but there's so many moving parts right now of, Tommy's health, Garrett, going in there and being the guy, and quite frankly, for a true freshman in the game that he's played, I think he's performed at a very, very high level. And you talk about the immediacy of him playing now and helping the offense, and that's part of the thing, as you mentioned, with the pass game too, that you don't want to put it all on a true freshman's back and have him, like I mentioned, throwing a ball over the yard. I think he rushed for 80 yards and, had some nice completions. But going back to your question, we want to make sure that the guy who's on the field is the guy that we need to perform at a high level, and if that affects a redshirt, it affects a redshirt. But we got to do what's best for the team first and foremost, and for the individual second. And all the kids understand that, and that's been communicated to them as well.
And kind of going off of that, if Garrett said that Tommy might have rushed back, I don't know if you
Yeah.
feel the same way. But if that's the case this week, if Tommy isn't 100% and you don't feel comfortable throwing him out there,
Yeah.
is there a situation in which you would consider giving Garrett his first start?
Yeah, I mean, we actually talked about that in staff meeting this morning, that, we're engaged where, and I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as rushing back. I mean, you can get into the semantics game, but Tommy was very, very motivated to play and wanted to come back and help the team because he's a competitor. And, I think he's earned that right as a fifth-year guy, that if he's healthy enough to play, to be given the start. But it's also kind of, where is the line of demarcation where the practice reps and the preparation and the continuity, matter the most on Saturday during the week. So figuring out who the starter is going to be and making sure that guy gets all the appropriate reps with the guys who are going to be in the game for the upcoming week. So that's kind of where we're at with that.
Coach, you mentioned Terrell Buckley helping those young secondary guys.
Yeah.
He's another guy on your staff that has some NFL playing experience. How important is that, having a guy like that that's played at the highest level to be on your staff, kind of like Michael is on the offensive side?
Yeah, I remember the word. Brings instant credibility to the room, and probably more so when the guys, going to be inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame and had a remarkable NFL career. And Buck's got a great rapport with the kids. And more than anything, there's guys that can tell you how to do it, and there's guys who can tell you how to do it based on what they've done. And when you go out and watch him during individual and his fundamentals and technique, it's not just from going to clinics and learning as a coach throughout your career. It's a guy who's done it at the highest level in college and in the NFL. So I think to have 2 young corners like that playing at a high level, I think that's a compliment to Buck and to our defensive staff as well.
Hadn't seen Alec Murphy in these first 3 games. Kind of what's his status right now?
Yeah, Alec is going to be he's not going to be able. He's out for the season. Yeah.
How does that affect the run? I saw Malik Deer had to take a rep and
Yeah.
run back.
We'd like to get Nick back as quick as we can. Ideally, it would be like it was the first game and a half, that Kylan's going to be the starter, Nick's going to be the backup, and then you utilize Lee as necessary. And Malik played, tailback all throughout high school and is kind of built in that body type and understands very, very smart football IQ. So we kind of pressed him into duty a little bit at running back last week, got in for a snap and did real well. But I think he's capable of doing those things at tailback.
Coach, Garrett Schrader's been on television a lot as of late for that play. And I know as his coach, you like the fire, but you also think about self-preservation. But what does that do for the locker room? What does that do for his teammates when they see him go out there and make an amazing play like that, even if he comes up a little bit short?
Yeah, first and foremost, the correction is on 4th down. You can't run the ball. You got to find a spot to throw it and give a guy a chance to catch it. I mean, obviously he came up a yard short. But he understands, and the thing that I've liked about him since I first started recruiting him until now is the guy's a dang competitor, and it means something to him. So in terms of, he doesn't need a team to rally around him because they believe him already, but when his teammates see a guy that's willing to put his body on the line and do something like that, to try to win a game, I think it continues to build the respect that they already have for him.
Statistically, Coach, I know through 3 games, a little bit behind last year's pace, I think, in terms of total yardage and things like that. But given the moving parts and probably a little bit the teams that have improved, and there's been a different opponent thrown in the first 3 games, things. Just where do you feel like through 3 games as compared to where you were a year ago? You still pretty confident in the direction the offense is headed, and just your thoughts on where the offense stands through 3 games.
And sometimes it's best to use statistics for support, not illumination. I think Coach Browner said it like a drunk uses a lamppost. I mean, you look at last year's opening. I mean, you played Stephen F. Austin in the opener, and they're a quality 1AA team. But I don't think necessarily that the people that you're looking at relatively in comparison. I mean, I think Louisiana won again. Are they undefeated or one loss maybe? And they're a much improved defense. Southern Miss has been one of the top defenses in the country, and I think we did a really nice job there. And ran for 200+ yards against Kansas State and just struggled to pass a little bit. So statistically, it may say we're a little bit behind. I mean, I think we're at 30 a game, a little bit of 33, but I don't think from a player standpoint, a coach standpoint, or just a pure, kind of naked eye observation standpoint that I think we're light years ahead because of the balance. You know what I mean? And I know that the 62 points and the 5 or 6 touchdowns against Stephen Austin may skew that a little bit. I think it was 700 yards. But, we play our FCS at the end of the year now, so you can tack that on when we get to that game.
Going back to the running backs, we saw Kareem Walker enrolled at the university last week. What is his status with the football team, and is there a timetable to get him on the field?
He's with us. There's just one more kind of administrative hurdle he's got to get over to get onto the field. So he's in meetings, he's around, he's doing all those things. We just got one more small thing before he gets on the field. It's been a while, I understand. I'm as impatient with it as you are.
Joe, you mentioned on Saturday, obviously 2 or 3 plays were the difference in Kansas State. You see the Kentucky had basically, you call it fourth quarter meltdown against Florida. Obviously the SEC opener.
I called it a fourth quarter meltdown?
No.
Oh, okay.
Kentucky,
I didn't want you to put that on me.
No. You look at it,
okay.
The box score, and obviously
Yeah.
Kentucky had the rough fourth quarter against Florida. Obviously every SEC game is a must-win, but
Yeah.
it's almost feel like, expecting 2 teams maybe a little desperate on Saturday just in terms of, a win or loss could really shape how the rest of the season goes out. I mean, it's tough to say week 4 is a must-win, but.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as desperation, but it's certainly, 2 teams coming off of tough losses against quality opponents, and they had it, down to the wire with an opportunity to kick the field goal, and unfortunately for the no pun intended, for the poor kid, the thing went a little bit wide right and could have been a difference in the game, and and I'm sure Coach Stoops, is a little bit disappointed, but a bit angry about the loss, just like I am. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that any of us are pleased that we had a close game against a Power 5 opponent that's undefeated. We're not happy about it. Okay, and I guess in terms of motivation, I don't think necessarily desperation. I think you're going to see 2 teams that played close games. They're a little bit upset and a little bit angry about the outcome. They're going to come loaded for bear and get ready to get this thing back on track. But I understand what you're saying. Yes, sir.
Coach, you mentioned having recruited Lynn Bowden out of high school. Just what kind of matchup does he present? And obviously with the secondary as good and deep as it is, how comfortable are you guys dealing with him?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, I think he came in second for the Mr. Ohio voting, but played almost primarily quarterback in high school on his highlight film. You go back and look at his huddle, but did a bunch of different things. But the word that comes to my mind is dynamic and versatile, that he can do a ton of different things and ways to get the ball in his hand. But I like Lynn. Lynn's an awesome kid, and had a chance to talk to him a little bit after the game on the field last year. But hopefully we can do what we need to do to slow him down. I don't know if you necessarily stop him, but yeah, he's one of the top playmakers in the SEC.
Going off of Tom's question, last year you guys start 0-2 in SEC play. This is a chance to start 1-0.
Yeah.
How big would that be just to get the first one right away?
I think it'll be big, just from a kind of a bounce back standpoint. But I think the thing that, at least I'll say corrected, but kind of changed from a mentality standpoint is we're more singleness of purpose oriented right now than we are long-term goal oriented. It's important to us because it's the next one, and because of the construct of this team, we need, in a bunch of different reasons, we can't be focused on, hey, this is SEC play or whatever. It's the game that we play this Saturday, and I think it's important because of that. But obviously, to get a head start, a jump start, to get a win in your first SEC game would be a good momentum builder heading into SEC play.
Obviously, I know some circumstances can be commented on, some can't. But Lee Autry played in the Southern Miss game and didn't play in the 2 that sandwiched it. Is there any clarity you can give to his availability and as far as why he may have played in the Southern Miss game and not, say, the K-State game?
Yeah. Availability will be given Saturday. there are reasons, but none that I care to comment on now.
Coach, second half, third down efficiency on offense is,
Terrible.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so,
gotcha.
but it was different factors. You had the drop with Zuper, and you had
Yeah.
an error pass from Garrett, and you took a shot on 3rd and 6. When you
Yeah.
go back and look at that film, what do you kind of attribute that to? Do you look at play calling? Do you look at execution? Or is it just a combination of all those factors?
Yeah, you look at everything, and obviously, the one with Isaiah, we had a little mesh route with a sit on top of it, and we got him open, and Garrett made a great read there. The one to Osiris on the 3rd and kind of medium plus in the red zone. And that's the thing with trying to teach a young quarterback. We have them in the huddle on the sideline. We say, all right, we like our one-on-one matchups. It's going to be man-free. They're going to be in a single high look. And, Osiris has been playing well. We're going to throw the go ball, do anything but overthrow him. And, we overthrow him. So we do it. And that happens. I mean, that's a freshman in a game, in that first experience. So it's a little bit of everything, making sure we're in the right call, and then when we do, making sure we protect, making sure we're accurate with the read and the throw, and making sure we catch it. So a little bit of everything. I think we were Louisiana. We were good on 3rd down. Southern Miss, and then this one not so much. So we got to be better on 3rd down.
Anything else? All right. Thank you.